is a management consultant and entrepreneur with over 10 years' experience in management consulting. In 2012, he co-founded the Young Sikh Professionals Network to mobilize the first generation of Australian Sikh professionals to build their professional capacity. He also chaired the steering committee of the Australia-India Youth Dialogue back in 2018-19. Hello and welcome. You are watching NewsX VaKu. My name is Megha Sharma, and joining me on the broadcast is a very special guest all the way from Sydney, Australia. Karan Anand. He's the head of Australia at Henry, and a tech startup that automates financial administration and tasks for sole traders. Karan has also gone ahead and co-founded and chairs the Young Sikh Professionals Network, which is an organization which develops young Sikh professionals through networking, mentoring, professional development in Australia as well as New Zealand. It's great to have you, Karan, on my show.
Great to be on the show, Megha. Thank you.
Karan, before I go ahead and speak to you about all the important and significant work that you're going ahead and doing with regards to the Indian diaspora and the Sikh diaspora, I would be very keen on knowing about your journey all the way from India to Australia. How long have you been over here, and how difficult or challenging was it to commence it all from scratch over here in a foreign land?
Sure, yeah. So my parents migrated to Australia in the early 90s. So I was just a child. I was 5 years old when we came out here. And, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that the country's presented me in the time I've been here. I've maintained my roots in India, though. I've managed to get back there once every 12 to 18 months because I've still got a lot of extended family there. But, growing up in a country like Australia when you have your heritage back in India is an interesting challenge. I mean, probably two aspects. One is the simplest thing is your cricketing loyalties are always torn. And for the record, I bleed blue still. That's the one thing I'll definitely cling on to. But the other thing is particularly, and it's the Indian background, but it's also the Sikh background, being a turban wearing Sikh. Growing up here, actually, I grew up in a small part of Australia, a place called Darwin in the north. And to my knowledge, and actually my mother looked this up, I was the only turban wearing Sikh in any school enrolled in my state. Mm-hmm. And so you sort of walked around and there were people looking at you every day going, who is this guy? What is he wearing? So there are people, that gets them worked up. In my case, it really gave me a sense of confidence. And over time, it's really given me the inspiration, the motivation to stay connected to my roots and ensure that the two heritages, which I'm very proud of, the Sikh heritage and the Indian heritage, I always stay close to as well and try and bake into all the work that I've done since.
Mm-hmm. And professionally speaking, you go ahead and work at Henry. Talk to us about that. Have there been other stints that you've gone ahead and why completely passionate about financial administration? What position that you are at?
Yeah, sure. So I spent 13 years in management consulting. So I was a director at Deloitte, focused on strategy and financial services. But we live in the tech generation. I don't think you'd be doing yourself service in the same way that NewsX does with a very broad digital platform if you're not playing in the tech space in this generation. I've always had an interest in it. And Henry is an incredible service where we automate tax and financial administration for sole traders, which are, make up about 1/10 of Australia's workforce. Everyone uniformly hates tax. As soon as you're a business, your tax becomes more and more complex. And so everything we can do to automate that and streamline that is really incredible. And the Henry service does that. We launched in New Zealand a few years back. We expanded to Australia last year. We're going absolutely gangbusters here. We're growing 30% month on month because sole traders need tax help and accountants, unfortunately, just don't cut it.
Also, for the fact that have you seen a transformative change in the way Australia has gone ahead and opened its doors for Indians, the Indian community, vis-a-vis the geopolitical, geostrategic change dynamic both nations share. I'm talking about, obviously, the COVID era, the common enemy that both nations share at this point of time in the Asian region, talking about China. Has that brought the two nations closer, and how effective and advantageous does it become for the Indian community living in Australia?
I mean, I don't know if I'd make any comments on common enemies because it's way far beyond my remit. But I think see things like the Quad, which is seen as one of the big strategic dialogues happening amongst the US, Japan, India, and Australia right now, which is seen really important. I know the rhetoric coming out of the Australian government very much is now about the Indo-Pacific. The diaspora plays a big role in that, and the Indian diaspora is becoming a lot more influential here. You have to remember that the Indian diaspora is very different to the British diaspora or the Canadian diaspora, for example, because most of us are still immigrants. There's very few who are second generation. And we know that the dividends of immigration pay off in generations 2, 3, 4, 5. But given that we've been able to rise to a position of such prominence so very quickly, there's a number of Indians who are sort of emerging in sort of grassroots politics at council level, some emerging at state level. There are a lot of Indians who are coming to prominence from a business perspective. I can only imagine what my kids, for example, will have, as really integrated members of the society, which is then only going to be even more important going back to the bilateral.
Thank you, Karan, for sharing such an expansive view of how the Indian community has gone ahead and made these strides in a foreign land in Australia. You being an integral part of it, and obviously the changed view of the American community in going ahead and opening all doors, being extremely warm with regards to taking in the Indian diaspora. Also, I wish you all the very best for all the good work that you have been going ahead and doing, and for your future endeavors as well.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network.
VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community. Help support us. Become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions, and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows.
You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards, and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu.
Sign up now. Log on to memboro.com/VaKu.